Merab versus Sugar Sean O'Malley just took place last night, and I'm going to be going through and breaking down the full card. And wow, what a pay-per-view. In my opinion, this was probably one of the better pay-per-view cards of the year so far. I mean, this thing from top to bottom, with the exception of some odd performances, we'll get into Patchy mix in a little bit. But I would say for the most part, this was a really fun pay-per-view, especially the prelim fights. That's where we're going to be starting off here today. We're going to be starting off from the bottom, going upwards. I'm basically going to be giving my take, my thoughts on the fight, maybe a little bit of analysis, and then just some fun commentary here as well. So we're starting off with Markel Medeiros versus Mark Choinsky. This was a great performance from Markel Medeiros, in my opinion. He's now 3-0 in the UFC. I know that Mark Choinsky, he stepped up on this fight on short notice, so the chances of him winning were already pretty slim. But yeah, Markel Medeiros looked great in this fight. You know, there were some moments where, you know, Mark Choinsky would land, and I was a little bit worried about that during the fight. Like, I was thinking to myself, I was like, ooh, you know, Markel Medeiros is winning this fight, but Choinsky could land something big. Like, I felt like that could have been coming, but overall, Markel Medeiros defeats him very convincingly. It looked like he was in control for pretty much the full fight. I mean, it wasn't a domination, but you could tell that he was clearly winning. I mean, the calf kicks he was landing on it. I'm just listening to Joe Rogan glaze him on commentary to start off the night. I mean, come on. What could be better? What could be better than that, than just listening to Joe Rogan glaze him for his calf kicks? But his calf kicks were actually really good in the fight. You can take a look at the total strikes, and the significant strikes here was quite a big difference here. They did score Markel Medeiros a knockdown, which I guess he would have gotten with some of those leg kicks. But yeah, great fight. It was fun. I really enjoyed watching it. I mean, I hope, you know, I would like to see Mark Choinsky fight in the UFC, maybe in a little bit of an easier matchup for him. I think he is kind of the level of some lower lightweights. So I think he could have a future in the division, even though he lost. Moving on, Killian Salakid versus Yanal Ashmouz. This was also a very fun fight. I was like, when this first happened, I was like, ooh, could this get fight of the night? But obviously with the some of the other performances that happened last night, you know, it just didn't end up happening. But it was a fun fight. I was very impressed by Killian Salakid's his takedowns. You know, watching some of Yanal Ashmouz's previous fights, you know, you can tell from the look of him, all right? He's a guy that's going to shoot in some takedowns, right? He's a guy that's going to try and dominate you on the ground. And the narrative kind of going into this fight was that, oh, you know, Killian Salakid, he's going to have to keep it up on the feet. You know, he can't get taken down. But it was kind of the opposite in this fight. You know, Killian found most of his success on the ground getting the takedowns. You can see 8 takedowns for him, you know, out of 23 attempted. Stuffed all of Yanal Ashmouz's takedown. Very impressive performance on his part. You know, he picked him up and slammed him at one point. You know, it was really good. You know, the first 2 rounds were kind of a masterclass by Killian Salakid, and then in the 30s he started to slow down a little bit. Kind of got me worried. You know, I think Yanal Ashmouz arguably could have won that 3rd round. You know, landing some of the bigger shots in that 3rd round. You know, kind of got me worried because, you know, Yanal Ashmouz, he was just throwing, like he was just overhand, you know, holy shit, you know, and a few times it kind of caught Killian's attention, like, whoa, okay, he's kind of going all out here, which made sense since he was down the first 2 rounds, and if he wanted to win, he'd have to kind of get a knockout. But fun fight, really fun fight. But Killian Salakid's cardio the 3rd round definitely kind of started to slow down, and that kind of worries me a little bit with him. Like, he's still young, I think he's still growing. And I know that there's a lot of hype behind him as a prospect. Obviously, like, looking at the odds here, quite insane, a -395 favorite. When I think really he should have been like a -2 to 1 favorite. But fun fight. I really enjoyed this fight, and I think Killian Salakid is a great prospect, but we'll see how far he actually ends up making it, because that cardio was a little bit worrying. Moving on to the next fight, Jekka Sarig versus Jusang Yu. So, funny story with this fight. The fight was starting, and I was like, all right, you know, I'm just going to go downstairs, grab a glass of water, maybe some food. Like, I'm not going to miss anything. And I missed one of the KOs of the year. It happens with the sport. My fault for not tuning in and watching it live. But I came back and I watched the replay, and wow, what a fucking genuine KO of the year contender. I mean, that was absolutely insane. Ju Sang Yu, under the Korean Zombie, his nickname is Zombie Junior. I loved his post-fight speech, saying that he wants to bring the belt back for the Korean Zombie. I think that's very, very wholesome, and after a performance like this, I could see him making it quite far. And, I know that Jeka Surigi's not a great fighter. He's been knocked out by fucking Anshul Jubilee. Like, I think I could probably go in there and fucking knock him out if I wanted to, but it was still very, very impressive left hook that he landed on him. It was very short, too. It didn't seem like it had much power behind it, but it just absolutely fucking made him faceplant into the ground, and it was very entertaining to watch. So good job for Ju Sang Yu, still undefeated. I'm excited to see who he gets matched up with next. They're probably not going to give him someone like very highly ranked quite yet, his first fight in the UFC. So but nonetheless, I think fantastic performance from him. I don't know what you do with Jeka Suriga. I think you cut him at this point. Like, after that, like, come on, bro. Like, I don't know who this guy's beating, but yeah, moving on. Andre De Silva versus Wang Kong. This was a really good performance by Wang Kong. What were they calling her on commentary? I was listening into that. I was so confused. I think they're calling her Wang Tong, which I guess is what you pronounce her name as. I was very confused by it at first, but yeah. So I guess I'm still just gonna call her Wang Kong because that's what it says her name is here. Good performance. She was stinging her with the calf kicks, as Rogan was saying on commentary, but really great performance. 30-27 to a unanimous decision, in my opinion. I think, Andre De Silva just didn't really have what it was to try and stop her. There's a few times where Wang Kong would kind of get caught by a shot where it'd go, ooh, that defense is kind of concerning here and there, but overall great performance. Like I said, 30-27, most likely she'll be ranked in kind of the 11 to 15 range after this. I think that the one loss that Wang Kong's had, not saying that it was a fluke, but I think she'd win that fight 8 or 9 times out of 10. So I think she's got a bright future in the division. I see her being, top 10, top 5 in the future. So yeah, not too much else to say from that. Landed some big shots, and it's a good fight. That's what I'm saying. Like, these early prelims were great. These were great to watch. I was like watching, it's like, holy shit, this is a fucking good card. Moving up the card to the prelim opener of Chaos Williams versus Andreas Gustafsson. Fuck me, man. This was just a beat. And it's so funny because you look at the total strikes and, Chaos Williams still landed 95 strikes. But thinking back to that fight, I could not tell you a single strike that he landed on Andreas Gustafsson. It was insane. Like, just an absolute beatdown. Andreas Gustafsson kept the pressure, got him in the clinch, landed some great takedowns, and just beat him up in the clinch, throwing body shots, head shots, hooks, jabs. First round, it kind of looked like, all right, that was, I'd say the first round was kind of the tightest round. I was thinking to myself, like, okay, Andreas Gustafsson, he controlled this round, but is he going to have the energy to keep on pushing this pace? Because he was pushing an insane pace in this fight. Just crazy pace. Just on him. Every single time Chaos Williams would get out of something, just boom, on him. Not letting it up whatsoever. And he did it for all 3 rounds. I really thought he was going to maybe gas out in the third, and maybe Chaos Williams would, be able to land a big shot and put him down, because that's kind of what Chaos Williams is really good at is, when guys are coming charging in, kind of finding that shot. But Andreas Gustafsson, he just destroyed him. He just kept the pressure, kept on going. I scored that last round a 10-8 round because he just had the pressure on him and he busted him open badly. I don't know where he busted him open. He was kind of starting to bleed at the end of the second round there, but yeah, third round he just pummeled him. And I think kind of what happened with Chaos Williams, I think he just broke him. I think he just, after those first 2 rounds, he knew he was down 2-0, and I just think he kind of gave up, didn't really have what was in him to try and land that big shot to get the fight back for him. So very impressive debut as well for Andreas Gustafsson. I think he's going to be a very, very fun fighter in the future of the division. I don't know how far he'll end up making it because, like I said, he does have a very scrappy style where if somebody can catch him and kind of take advantage of that with the right game plan, they could probably put him out. But nonetheless, great performance. Great debut. Moving on, Waldo Cortez Acosta versus Sergey Spivak. Two blubbery big men here. Really not much happened this fight. I loved Waldo Cortez Acosta's showboating. I did predict Sergey Spivak to win this fight, so I was kind of surprised by, he kind of just seemed complacent is the right word. Spivak seemed very, very complacent in this fight where, he'd land some big shots and then he'd kind of just stand there covering, and I think, you see the total strike numbers. I don't think this is very accurate. I think a lot of the shots that Cortez Acosta got on him were just on the guard that they were counting for him, which, I still think that Cortez Acosta did win the fight overall, 29-28. 30-27 scorecard for him is kind of crazy. But, it just kind of seems like Spivak just kind of let the fight get away from him. Like, he kind of just accepted losing. I didn't really see that grind in him, which I was kind of surprised by, especially a guy who's, been able to beat Marcin Tybura, had a great first round against Jailton Almeida. For Waldo Cortez Acosta to just kind of beat him like that, I was very, very surprised by. But nonetheless, he won the fight, and he's now somehow a top 10 at heavyweight. It just shows you how shit of a division that heavyweight currently is. I think that this is the furthest that Cortez Acosta will make it in his UFC career. I don't see him beating anyone above Sergey Spivak. I even think that this was kind of a crazy win for him to get. I think any other heavyweight kind of just destroys him. He's very susceptible to low kicks, and Spivak just didn't take advantage of that. And Spivak just at moments just didn't really throw. Like I said, he was just very complacent, kind of just sitting there in his guard, not really doing a whole lot, just sitting there, getting hit. He'd lower it. That was it. He tried a few takedowns. He did get 2 takedowns in the fight, but not a great performance by Spivak. I thought he'd do better, with the level that he's been at before. But Waldo Cortez Acosta is now a top 10 heavyweight in the UFC. In big 2025. Crazy time we're living in. Moving on. Azamat Mrzakana versus Brenson Ribeiro. This was another beatdown. I know that Brenson Ribeiro kind of, stepped up on shorter notice for this fight. I think he took the fight just over a week ago or so. So, it was... And even if you just look at the odds, like Azamat Mrzakana was going to win. Even though he's, and it's just so confusing because you look at his build and he's just a flabby bald guy. He just kind of looks like an overweight middleweight, borderline welterweight. He's not tall. He's 5'10". He's 5'10". I mean, we got lightweights at that height. But he's going out there and he's winning. He's knocked out of, he's on a 5-5 win streak in the UFC, undefeated. Won 4 of his last 5 fights by finish in the UFC. So I hope they give him some better competition because it just seemed like he was in complete control of this fight. And I did predict a round 1 KO. So not much else to say there. I mean, great performance on his part. And I hope he gets to face some higher competition. I think Johnny Walker's already got a fight that's booked with Zhang Mingyang, kind of rumored. Otherwise, I'd kind of recommend Johnny Walker fight. Maybe a Volkan Ozdemir. That could be an entertaining fight. Jan Blachowicz, maybe, if Jan's still kind of... That might be a little bit of a far jump up, but, still a potential fight. Anyways, I hope he gets a higher ranked opponent. Moving on, Bruno Silva versus Joshua Van. This was a fun fight. I fucking love Joshua Van. He's such a fun prospect, such a fun fighter. He's active, he's young. I mean, just seeing what he's been able to do at 23, like, look, I'm 21, and I'm seeing, this guy's 2 years older than me, and he's styling on these guys. This guy, might get ranked in the top 10, trying to maybe look for a top 5 opponent. He's got a lot of momentum behind him. He's very active. I think the UFC likes that, and they're kind of starting to see the momentum behind Joshua Van. I'm pretty sure that Joshua Van either tied or broke the record for most knockdowns in a 3-round flyweight fight in this matchup, which is just crazy. I mean, and the thing is, it's not even that, Bruno Silva was not trying, or it seemed like he was out of control. It did look like Bruno Silva, he was in the fight still, even after getting dropped. He was just, still trying to go at it, but I think Joshua Van is just that good, where he stays calm, he stays composed, even if he gets hit, even if maybe, in a round the momentum is shifting, he doesn't let that get to his head, which I think, especially for a young fighter, is so interesting to see. He kind of reminds me of like a young Max Holloway in the division, coming up, this fantastic prospect that just fucking throws, is this insane output. 149 strikes, just craziness. Yeah, I got the KO in round 3. That was fantastic. I was a little bit worried kind of in the third round because it looked like Bruno Silva was starting to get a little bit more momentum in the fight, throwing some knees. But yeah, like I said, Joshua Van, he stayed composed, stayed in control of the fight, and after 3 knockdowns was able to get the TKO on Bruno Silva here. So I'd love to see him, like I said, fight up the rankings. Maybe the loser of Steve Ursay, Alex Perez, could fight Joshua Van. Another name. I know people have been saying Brandon Moreno. I think that's a little unrealistic, just given his spot at the rankings, and maybe they want to. If they really want to push him, maybe they could give him the loser of Kai Kara France versus Alexander Pantoja. That could be interesting. I'm taking Pantoja in that fight, so maybe once Kai Kara France loses, give him Joshua Van. That could be interesting. Both guys big strikers, kind of flyweight knockout artists. So could be interesting. I'd love to see him fight up. Like I said, he is still young. Did take that one loss to Charles Johnson, but I think he's got a bright future in this division, and great fight. This is what I'm saying. Like up to this point in the card, other than maybe the Spivak fight that was a little bit dull here and there, just really, really great fights. Moving on, Vicente Luque versus Kevin Holland. I was wrong about this fight. I chose Vicente Luque to win by decision, and Kevin Holland hit him with that 45-70. He did it. He got him by kind of this choke in the second round. I was kind of very surprised by that, and even then kind of dominated the first round too. I was very surprised at how in control Kevin Holland was in this fight. I think welterweight is a much, much better division for Kevin Holland, just with his height, his build, his length. For guys that kind of are looking for the takedowns, like Vicente Luque. He's got great takedown defense, great striking. I'm kind of glazing Kevin Holland right now, which I don't like, because I don't like Kevin Holland as a fighter. I think he's kind of a fucking fraud. But he won. And he won quite convincingly. So good for him. He got a performance bonus. I will say, though, I would have rather have liked to seen Joshua Van get a performance bonus over Kevin Holland. I mean, come on, the guy's he's making like $300,000, $400,000 a fight already, just because of how active he's been in the UFC, how long he's been, how many fights he's had. Like, come on. I would have liked to have seen Joshua Van get that bonus. I think it was a little bit more of a better performance than what Kevin Holland had, which, like I said, Kevin Holland still had a great performance, great submission, but it would have been it would have been nice to see a younger guy, someone who's, not as rich, someone who can maybe use the money a little bit more, get that performance bonus, but it is what it is. But great submission by Kevin Holland. Surprised me. I'll say that for sure. I was shocked when he got him latched up in the anaconda choke there for Vicente Luque. So moving up the division, I mean, I'd love to see Kevin Holland versus Carlos Prates. He called out Colby Covington. But I could see Colby maybe taking up that matchup. Colby, if he's not fucking retired at this point or just spending his full time gambling, I think with his grappling and his takedowns could pose a problem for Kevin Holland, and it is a winnable fight for Colby, but I think it's also a very winnable fight for Kevin Holland, and the trash talk and the build up for that fight would be fantastic. Like put that on like, I don't know, put that on like a UFC Abu Dhabi card or something like that, or even a summertime, put on the Chimaev card, I just feel like it would add so much fun to one of those big cards. I would love to see it. So moving up, Mario Bautista versus Patchy Mix. This was, I was shocked at how poor of a performance that Patchy Mix was, and I'll admit I was wrong. All right, I saw the hype of Patchy Mix coming in. I saw his submissions. I saw his record. I saw the hype around him. One thing that I just don't understand, Patchy Mix is a submission artist. And he shot in one takedown in the third round. And I cannot fathom what the game plan was here. I just don't get it. I don't know. Like, when the second round ended and he hadn't even shot a takedown yet in this fight, I was just like, what the fuck is he doing? I almost feel like this was such a shit performance on his part that this almost feels like, this almost kind of felt like an inside job. Like, that's just how shocking this was to me. Like, I was thinking to myself, like, did Dana pay him off to lose to make Bellator look like shit? Like, I can't believe this. Like, and listen, all respect to Mario Batista. I understand, you know, I was on the hate train for him after that Aldo performance. But he pieced him up for 3 straight rounds. Very, very clear 30-27 unanimous decision, in my opinion, for Mario Batista. Very impressive. 8-fight win streak in the UFC Bantamweight division right now. I think you give Mario Batista someone in the top 5. Maybe, you know, I would... Yeah, I wouldn't say Sean O'Malley because I know they trained together, but I don't know. I think Bantamweight's kind of in a weird spot where there's no one really in the top 5 other than Petr Yan that's fighting down right now. You know, maybe if Sandhagen doesn't get the title shot, you know, maybe put him up against Mario Batista. Maybe Mario Batista versus Umar Nurmagomedov. Who knows? You know, I think there's a lot that you could do with Mario Batista here, and I was very impressed by his performance. And I think most importantly, kind of a narrative shift here is that, you know, it was a fun performance for Mario Batista. This wasn't, you know, a boring fight. This wasn't a bad fight. This wasn't just a hold him up against the cage fest kind of fight. And as for Patchy Mix, man, I don't know what the fuck you do with him from here. I mean, it was just such a shit performance. It was so bad. You know, he looked lost. He looked stiff. There was no head movement. He was getting hit by literally every single thing that Batista was throwing at him and did not. He tried one takedown in round 3 and completely failed it and just didn't try it again. Shocking. Like, genuinely shocked. Like, I remember I was watching this fight with my girlfriend and I was just like, what the fuck is going on? You know? So, very disappointing performance from Patchy Mix, in my opinion, but, you know, it is what it is. You know, maybe give him, like, I don't even know who you give him next. Like, who do you give Patchy Mix next in this division? Maybe like a Jonathan Martinez. You give him that, you know? I don't know. Maybe like a Peyton Talbot. Just feed him to another prospect. Like, I don't know. What you do with him here. Crazy bad performance. This was probably the most shocking part of the fight card. And I don't know. It was even just disappointing to watch because I did kind of want to see him sub Mario Batista just for revenge for what he did to Aldo. But yeah, moving on. Joe Pyfer versus Kelvin Gastelum. Joe Pyfer knocked him down twice in the first round. I really thought that Kelvin was out of it. I was shocked that he stayed in the fight and even won the third round. You know, it kind of seems like, I think what I learned from Joe Pyfer in this fight is he was very one note. You know, if it wasn't an overhand right, he wasn't fucking throwing it. You know, there was so many times where I was watching this fight and I was thinking, just throw a kick or a jab or a body shot or something. Like, you know, and I understand kind of the want to get the knockout, especially after how the first round went. I completely understand that. But fuck, man. I mean, I think if he just switched up a little bit more, kind of, fuck it, even like he shot out for 2 takedowns. Shoot more. You know, going to the third round, he was not gassed at all. You know, go all out in that third round. Like, the fact that he lost the third round to Kelvin Gastelum's a little bit worrying. You know, props to Kelvin for kind of getting back into the fight at that point. But good win from Joe Pyfer. You know, turned the body cam off for this one with those 2 knockdowns at the beginning. You know, saw that he had a Mexican standing in front of him and said, fuck it, here we go. So, yeah, but it was good. It was really good. There were 2 good knockdowns in the first round. Second, and honestly, I would have scored that at 10-8. I think 2 of the judges did, and I totally agree with that with those 2 knockdowns. Definitely a 10-8 round for Joe Pyfer. And then a closer second round, but I still edged it out to Joe Pyfer, and I think all the judges did as well. But, you know, still kind of, you know, a Kelvin Gastelum round in the third, which was kind of disappointing to see. But, yeah, Joe Pyfer gets it done, you know, in front of Trump, in front of America. I would say give Joe Pyfer a ranked opponent next, you know. I'm trying to think who you could give him. You know, him versus Vettori would be a fun fight, but I think Vittori's already got a fight booked against, I Brendan Allen. Maybe the loser of that fight you could give to Joe Pyfer. You know, I do think that, you know, obviously he's got great build for the division, shit ton of power. I mean, fuck, dude. Like, being able to do that to Kelvin Gastelum, like, the shots that he landed on him, I think would have knocked out, like, 90 to 95% of middleweights in the UFC. But, yeah, like I said, very one-note, very one-dimensional, and I could see so many guys exploiting that. You know, I could even see a Vittori exploiting that, maybe. You know, that's kind of a hot take, but fuck, man. I mean, one note, man. So one note. Just an overhand right. That's all he has, but fuck. You know, entertaining to watch nonetheless. Moving on, Kayla Harrison versus Juliana Pena. Kayla Harrison dominated in this fight. You know, not much to say about it. Got the Kimura lock on her, subbed her, literally right at the end of the second round. Literally 5 seconds left at the end of the second round. Juliana Pena got a point taken away from her in the first, which was just crazy to see. Arguably a 10-7, if I could say that. It was just kind of insane to watch. I was like, how are you this bad at fighting? Kind of unbelievable, but yeah, Kayla Harrison, she gets it done, you know, in very dominant fashion too. For anyone that picked Juliana Pena, you're a fucking retard, and I think you shouldn't pick fights ever again. So Kayla Harrison, like I said, gets it done very convincingly by submission. Called out Amanda Nunes. I guess they're going to book that fight now. It'll be entertaining to see. I like how, you know, I think with WMMA, I'm not saying that it's getting revitalized, but I do think that we're at a much better point than we've been in a very long time. You know, with Zhang Wei Li, Valentina Shevchenko, and Kayla Harrison all champions. I know that Mianin Fiorot versus Valentina Shevchenko fight was kind of a stink fest. And even her fight against Alexa Grasso wasn't great, but I think that Valentina Shevchenko is, you know, an entertaining personality. You know, Zhang Wei Li, always very entertaining. And same as Kayla Harrison. I think we have 3 great WMMA champions right now, which I'm fortunate about. And I haven't really heard many people talk about that because I know the WMMA gets hated on, and I'll admit it. I'm a hater on it too. I do hate on WMMA, especially after the Macy Barber versus Erin Blanchfield main event that fell through last weekend. So as much of a shithole as it is, I think I'm very happy with the 3 champions that we do have in WMMA right now. And I kind of want to give it its flowers because I do think that it is at a good point right now. And I think that Amanda Nunes versus Kayla Harrison would be a great fight. I think it'd be entertaining, and I think it would draw in a lot of views. And I'd watch it too. I think I'd be entertained by it. I've seen some people saying, like, oh, give Amanda Nunes the 145 title back since technically that division just doesn't exist anymore. She kind of retired with it. I think that could be an interesting point. I don't think that they will because, like, there's literally just not enough people to make that a division in the UFC. So, yeah, I can't believe that Juliana Pena was a 2-time women's bantamweight champion. Kind of crazy. And like I said, like in my prediction breakdown, I said that I don't think that Juliana Pena beat Raquel Pennington. Like, she's just a shit fighter. Yeah, that's all. That's kind of all I gotta say. But yeah, I guess we'll end up seeing Amanda Nunes versus Kayla Harrison sometime in the future, which is a fight that I'm looking forward to and should be a lot more high level than what this was or Raquel Pennington is. So, moving on to the main event, Merab Dvalishvili versus Sean O'Malley. Guys, what did I say? What did I say here? Because here's the thing, right? Let me make myself clear. I am not a Dagestani Glazer, right? I'm not a guy that's going to sit here and pretend like I love watching fence-hugging fighters. Like I just said, I fucking didn't like Mario Batista's performance against Aldo. I thought that was shit, you know? But what I do love are dominant fighters that, you know, are improving and are on GOAT runs. And that's exactly what Merab is on, right? You know, in a lot of the shorts that I post, I had a lot of people saying, like, oh, you're just glazing Merab. You know, Merab's not in the GOAT conversation. Like, oh, he does his fence hug. He's not that good of a fighter. You know, look at his technique shit. And yes, Merab, but I can't even say that after this fight because his grappling and his takedowns, even his striking, I need to put this into perspective for people. He took a round off of O'Malley by striking. Like, not from his takedowns, not from his grappling or holding on. His striking, he outstruck O'Malley that gave him a round. That is very, very impressive. You know, I know that the narrative for Merab has always been, you know, oh, he's just a cardio, he's a machine, you know, that's what gets him the wins, you know, he can just dominate, and he has a gas tank, and people can't deal with that. I think that Merab is a fighter that is improving in every single fight. I think his striking has greatly improved. Now, I'm not saying he's going to get knockouts, or he's going to get knockdowns, or he's going to get these crazy highlight reels, but his striking's gotten to the point where, you know, in a fight against O'Malley, he's getting, you know, he's winning rounds off of the striking, which I think is very impressive. And like I said, his grappling is just so dominant. And the biggest thing now is the fact that Merab is incorporating finishing abilities into his game plans, I think is going to make him unstoppable. I genuinely do not see an end to Merab's title reign with him having finishing ability. Like this, like the fact that he was able to get the submission on Sean, and the fact that he's been training this now, and this is, you know, his main thing that he's going to be doing, it looks like, in his title defenses. I don't know who deals with him, you know. And I guess to touch on Sean for a second, I think that Sean looked much better in this fight than the first fight. You know, Sean O'Malley, he looked bigger. His takedown defense was better. His striking looked more on point. But it still wasn't enough. It still wasn't enough to put a stop to Merab. You know, he, like I said, Merab took a round off of Sean from striking, which is crazy. Outstriking Sean O'Malley in a round and taking a round off him for that. You know, and even with the great takedown defense of Sean O'Malley, Merab still got him down and just absolutely dominated the third. Got the submission in, and I was shocked. You know, and kind of into the, like, going into the fight, like, I picked Merab, and I did get that right, and I did say he was going to dominate O'Malley again. You know, I saw that, you know, it looked like he was really trying to incorporate finishes into the fights, and even though I thought he was going to win by decision, there's a part of me that was thinking, like, oh, but he could get a submission in, though. Like, if Merab was able to just get submissions into his game, which is what it looks like he has now, he will be unbeatable, and that's where he's currently at, you know. I think it's undeniable to call him the Bantamweight GOAT. And, like, I've talked about this on my channel before, where, you know, like I was talking about before, Merab is the Bantamweight GOAT. And you can't make any other argument against it. Because I see people saying, oh, well, he's not the most skilled, he's not the best striker, and he's not the best grappler, which I also think that's a narrative change now. You know, but even taking those things out of it, like, his wins are insane. It's better than any other person in bantamweight history, and I think he's starting to, you know, creep up on top 10 fighters of all time, you know, in that GOAT discussion. And I don't see him going anywhere. You know, he's 34, so he's a little bit older, but unlike most older fighters, he's still improving. So very, very dominant win from Merab. I'll say that now. You know I said dominance in the first fight, but this was truly a dominant performance by Merab. And, you know, for Sean O'Malley, he said he wants to keep on fighting, which I think is great. You know, if Corey Sandhagen doesn't get the title fight, which I think he should, because if they rebook the fucking Umar matchup, I'm going to lose my fucking mind. I'm going to lose my marbles. I'm going to be throwing shit in my room, and you're all going to see it. You know, so maybe the Sandhagen match for Sean could be good. The Petr Yan rematch, I think, would be fantastic. Or maybe even make him fight down, you know, maybe like a Song Yadong matchup, you know. So, yeah, I guess stopping Gooning isn't the best way to regain your UFC title. And I don't want to say that it almost looked like Sean accepted defeat, but I don't think he really just had it in him to win. And a part of me really wanted Sean to win because I love entertaining fighters. I love entertaining fights. I love seeing awesome fucking highlight reel KOs. You know, some of my favorite fighters are, like, one of my favorite fighters of all time, Alex Pereira. I love him because of his fighting style, you know. And I love Sean O'Malley for the same reason, but I don't think he had it in him to win. You know, and Rob made those adjustments, he made those changes, and he really showed out and had a fantastic performance here. So, Yeah, I'd say book Merab versus Corey and maybe Sean versus Song Yadong or even Henry Cejudo. I think would be a great fight for Sean. Very winnable fight for Sean. Um, and that's it. That was a card today or yesterday. Great card. I'd give it like a good like 8 out of 10. This was a very good card um, uh, this year. So if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like. Make sure to subscribe. And on a final note, I'm getting a new mic hopefully here soon. So hopefully my audio quality increases. If you guys have any recommendations for cameras as well, I just use my phone to record my videos. So if you guys have any recommendations for that, let me know. But yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts on the card. Let me know you know future matchups that you'd love to see for these fighters. And I hope you all have a wonderful day.